Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here this afternoon. Over the past several months, many members of our community have become actively engaged in the process of finding a location in downtown Kitchener to open a consumption and treatment services site. As I've listened closely to those many voices and learned much from those with lived experiences and expertise in drug addiction and harm reduction, I've once again been reminded of what a caring and compassionate community we live in, and of the importance of continuing that strong tradition as we make decisions about the future of our community, our entire community. While there has been some disagreement about the exact location of a CTS site in downtown Kitchener, there has been virtually no disagreement about the need to make it happen. I applaud my colleagues on Kitchener City Council who have supported a CTS site in central Kitchener from the very beginning. And I applaud my colleagues on Regional Council for leading the process to bring this vital service to our community, not because we have to, but because we know it will save lives and because it is the right thing to do. Tonight, I will be supporting Councillor Sarah Marsh's new motion to approve 150 Duke Street West as the location of a future CTS site, and I strongly encourage all of our council colleagues to do the same. By endorsing this motion this evening, we can continue to move our community forward and work together with the region to ensure that the Central Kitchener CTS site provides much-needed services to some of the most vulnerable in our community. I'll now ask Councillor Marsh to bring forward the motion she'll be introducing later on, or that she proposes to introduce. We will then hear from delegations and have any discussion and debate. Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Mayor Verbanovic. Over the last few days, it's become evident to me that the best chance for getting a consumption and treatment services site anywhere in Waterloo Region would be to support the region's public health recommendation to support the 150 Duke Street West location. It really became crystallized for me after hearing from so many community members from all different perspectives, and of course from reading the report from the region and working alongside the mayor. We found a way forward through this very pressure cooker-like situation. Since releasing the statement, I should say, I am encouraged by the supportive comments from members of the community and my colleagues alike. I breathed a sigh of relief when we made that call, and I think that once we released the statement online yesterday, it's fair to say that a large number of community members breathed a collective sigh of relief as well. It was seconds before the thanks and accolades started to pour in, along with a few concerned individuals as well, which all comments were appreciated. But I have to say the overwhelming positive response confirms for me how compassionate and caring our community is, and I'm proud of you, Kitchener. So I plan to introduce a motion, but I want to make sure that my colleagues are fully aware of where we're heading with this. So here it is. Whereas Kitchener City Council has consistently recognized the urgent need for and continues to strongly support the establishment of consumption and treatment services within the City of Kitchener and across the region of Waterloo, be it resolved that the City of Kitchener support the region of Waterloo's application to the provincial government for funding to operate consumption and treatment services at the location of 150 Duke Street West, Kitchener, and be it further resolved that the City of Kitchener support the region of Waterloo in the establishment of a temporary consumption and treatment services site in an appropriate location within the City of Kitchener for a period of up to 15 months as an interim measure pending the completion of the permanent site.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? There appear to be a few seconders. Councillor Chapman, I'll take you as the seconder as the other downtown councillor. So I think, as everyone can see, at some point today we'll be dealing with this, but there seems to be significant support on council. We'll now move into delegations. There are many delegations. I want to remind delegations that you have 5 minutes to make your presentation. We will, because of the number of delegations, and at this point there appear to be 24 in total, although some I'm not seeing in the audience at the moment. And we will, so we have 5 minutes for everyone to make their presentations. I would ask council to focus their questions, if there are any, on questions of clarification. And beyond that, I'll just remind everyone that as part of council protocol, there is not any hooting, hollering, clapping, booing, any of that kind of thing in the council chamber. I would ask everyone to respect all of the delegations and any differences of opinion you may have with delegations. This is an opportunity for everyone to be heard and for council to ultimately make a recommendation that would go to regional council and enable them to make their final decision at regional council on Wednesday night. And if assuming that this council approves the location in question and regional council ratifies it, then the region can continue on right away with the application process to the province. So with that, we'll start with delegations, and the first delegation that we have is Karen Taylor Harrison, but I don't see her, so she might be coming later on. So next I have Laurie Guest, Blythe Academy.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Laurie Guest, and I'm the principal of Blythe Academy, Waterloo. Blythe Academy is a private school with 14 locations throughout Ontario. Blythe Academy, Waterloo is located at 260 King Street West. We are beside, proudly, Kitchener City Hall and above the Shoppers Drug Mart. The site that you are proposing is directly behind the school. Our students exit out the back of the building to be picked up by their parents and are in that area many times a day. As well, they will be using the transit along Duke Street. Our school currently has 45 students, I can use this, in grades 9 and 12. We are expecting to grow to about 70 students in the next year, and 120 students after that. We're also expecting next year to have a grade 7 and 8 program. These students are between the ages of 11 and 19. Blythe Academy has 4 types of students. We have elite athletes that need the flexibility that our school offers. We have university-bound students that like the small class sizes that we provide. We have a group of international students from countries such as Brazil, China, and the United Kingdom. But it's the next group that I'm the most worried about. These are students, and they are the majority of our school, that have not been successful in a large public school or Catholic school. And they come to us because they couldn't handle the size, the noise, the bullying, and the anxiety that that school caused. We are a safe haven for these kids, and we are seeing tremendous success. Our school is located in the downtown area because of all it has to offer. Our school believes in experiential learning, and as such are out in the local community on a consistent basis. We regularly go to the library, museum, Communitech, Google, and all of the local restaurants. Our phys ed class is often in Victoria Park. We make use of all that the downtown has to offer. We really believe in experiential education. In the last 10-week term, we had 18 field trips out into this community, and it's a wonderful thing. All of these locations have welcomed our students and enhanced their education. On their free time, our students are out in the community unsupervised. The Education Act tells us that a cannabis store and a sensitive site can't be within 150 meters of a school. The same premise should be applied in this situation. My school is 110 meters from where you're proposing. We support the safe consumption site in Kitchener. It is its location and its close proximity to unsupervised children and teenagers that, as a principal, has me enormously concerned. These days, it's increasingly difficult to be a teenager. Please don't make this harder for my students. A school must be a nurturing, safe, and supportive environment for all children to be successful and happy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. and there don't appear to be any questions. I will just clarify one thing, that it's the region's recommendation for the site, and we're simply dealing with it.
It's just,
Yep.
you can see why I'm seriously concerned.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Okay? Thank you.
Our next delegation is Jenny Kirby.
I think you're too short for these. Okay,
Welcome, Ms. Kirby.
thank you. This preface doesn't count as my 5 minutes, because I'm just gonna say, I wrote a very long thing, so I'm gonna try to speak as quickly as possible to get it all through. So, okay, 5 minutes starts now. To those who may not know me, I'll try to give you a very brief introduction as to who I am and why this issue is so important to me. My name is Jenny, I'm 27 years old, I've lived and worked in downtown Kitchener for a decade, and I worked at a law firm a stone's throw away from 150 Duke. I grew up in Oakville, graduated high school at the age of 15, then went to Laurier to study psychology, much to my parents' chagrin, who wanted me to study business. I'm also an intravenous drug user, and I am one of many people who will use the supervised consumption site. When I went to the Regional Council meeting last Tuesday and was told that Kitchener Council was only prepared to support a site at 105 Victoria, I felt like I had been punched in the gut. I knew there was no way that an application on that land would be approved or funded by the province, and that our chances to see a supervised consumption site, something we are finally so close to getting after it's taken so long, would be completely destroyed, and that it would be the literal nail in so many coffins. Although I knew that an SIS could be the thing that saves my or my partner's life one day, this fight was never about me. I also do outreach with people who use drugs, and am aware of the daily trauma they continue to face as drug users are forced to become first responders and expected to save our loved ones as they die right in front of us, rather than being given any professional help. I personally have reversed many overdoses, lost 4 close friends over the last couple of years, not to mention the number of acquaintances and people I know through my outreach and simply from being a downtown resident who spends every day downtown, particularly in the area of City Hall. People whose faces still remind me of Kitchener itself are now gone. I no longer pass them on the street, and I will never see them again. All the friends I lost over the years did everything they were told they were supposed to do. They went to detox, they graduated from drug court, they went to rehab for up to 6 months, got on methadone, even managed to get off methadone, which is a huge feat in and of itself. Yet as most addicts do, they relapsed, and that final time using is what took their lives. If they had a safe place to go where they wouldn't have had to deal with the shame and guilt that comes with relapsing, it could have gone somewhere that would have taken them in with open arms, no judgment or lecture about having to change, yet still would have offered them the tools they needed to get back on their path to sobriety, they would all still be here today. As mentioned, this was never an argument about whether 150 Duke or 105 Victoria was the better location, even though 150 Duke is the better location for many reasons I outlined in emails that I sent to you and have said at other meetings. But to me and everyone I know who have been intimately involved with this process every step of the way, we knew that if we applied to the province with 105 Victoria as our proposed location, there was zero chance we would receive approval or funding. This is the Ford government we're talking about. They're cutting all social services, and they didn't want to support this program in the first place. The idea that they would be willing to provide upwards of $2 million just to construct a supervised consumption site from scratch, not to mention the over $700,000 in operating costs we would also require, seems so ludicrous to me, and I'm sure is why many others never took 105 Victoria as a serious possibility. I met with Christine Elliott personally last fall. I have followed every statement this government has made, including since they overhauled the program requirements and more recently cut funding for a few sites. This isn't a matter of them maybe or maybe not approving a site at 105 Victoria. I guarantee our application will be dismissed and thrown in the trash if we use 105 Victoria as our proposed location. Not to mention that we all seem to agree that we need to get something up and running as soon as possible. Since this process first began in June of 2017, we have lost at least 122 lives. This is unacceptable, and we need to work as quickly as possible, together with the region, public health, and Sanguine, to get a site open as soon as possible. Even if we entertained the idea that building a $2 million site from scratch wouldn't take the 18-month estimated by an independent engineering firm, it would certainly take much longer than getting Duke Street up and running. For one, because we need the province's approval, and as already stated, they will not approve 105 Victoria. And even if the city or region could come up with the cost themselves, as if the community who's already angry about their provincial tax dollars being spent on enabling junkies wouldn't throw a fit about their property taxes being used to fund creating one of these sites. Sorry, I realize I'm out of time, so I'm just going to say harm reduction saved my life more than by just providing the naloxone that reversed the 5 overdoses that would have otherwise saved my life, more than by providing clean needles that ensured I didn't get Hep C. The relationships I made with the people who work at Sanguine Health Centre, the same agency who will be running our site, are what made my life worth living at a time I felt I had no value left. And I cannot wait for them to have the opportunity to reach so many more people who currently don't have any or little access to healthcare and social services, or the belief in themselves that they can change, because addicts need that little bit of faith and encouragement that comes from someone else believing in them, and most importantly, that they can make changes at their own pace and on their own terms. But I'd like to sincerely thank Barry Verbanovic and Sarah Marsh for taking the time out of their day to meet with me and discuss my fears about losing our one shot at getting a supervised consumption site. I think we all agree how much these services are needed in our downtown. I want each of you to know that for those of us who have been fighting for these sites and will be partnering with the site once it opens, we will do everything we can to make this site something our entire city will be proud of. We will work with any neighbors who have concerns. We want to be good neighbors too. But I cannot stress how important it is that we make the right decision as to which site to apply for, because it comes down to the fact that 105 Victoria will not receive approval or funding from the government, while 150 Duke will. And thus this is our only chance at being able to make a difference in the lives of people who use drugs. Without 150 Duke on the table, our fight is over. Sorry, I know I'm already out of time, so I'm going to skip all of this. And I'll just again say thank you. As someone who uses drugs and will use the supervised consumption site, thank you. Thank you for listening to us, for trusting that we know what we want, what we need, and what will and will not work for us. Thank you for trusting the people who have already provided us with services and made the connections that have kept us alive and healthy thus far. And thank you for showing all of Waterloo Region that Kitchener has and continues to be the leader in taking care of all its community members, for not giving in to fear and hate, or for allowing developers to put a price on the lives of myself and my friends. Thank you for your continued support of these services. On behalf of not just people who use drugs, not just the angels who work with us, not just our loved ones and the parents who have already had to bury their children, but still had the strength to come out and relive their pain in the hopes that no one else would ever have to experience the grief they feel every single day. And on behalf of all the lives your decision to support an application for 150 Duke will impact, thank you. I will never be able to adequately express how much this means to me and to all of us, but the respect you have shown us and willingness to listen and reconsider 150 Duke is something that I will be grateful for the rest of my life. Thank you for sending the message that the lives of people who use drugs do matter. And again, thank you in particular to Barry and to Sarah for taking the time to meet with me and for keeping an open mind. Thank you to all of you for listening to your constituents. Thank you for showing your support for supervised consumption sites from the very beginning. Thank you for agreeing to join us on this journey to ensure that we can save and improve the lives of people who use drugs and put a stop to the carnage that has been destroying our community for the past few years. Together, we can and will make a difference. Thank you for letting me go over time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kirby. Our next delegation is Mr. John Laverne. Welcome, Hi. Mr. Laverne.
Yes.
I said welcome.
Sorry?
Welcome.
Oh, thank you.
No.
So yes, my name is John Laverne. For those of you who don't know me, who haven't watched the regional debates, I'm 32. I've been using IV opiates for over half my life now. I'm also a peer outreach worker with Sanguine Health Center and spend most of my week at the back handing out clean supplies to the people who desperately need them and the people who would absolutely use a safe consumption site if they could, instead of the alleys and the trap houses and the motel rooms that they're forced to use instead. Again, I want to, like Jenny, I want to thank you both for listening. I want to thank anybody who read the email that was sent out and looked at the report that made it very, very clear that Victoria Street is simply not viable. That if you vote for Victoria Street, you're voting for just an end to the 2.5 years of work we've been doing, and many, many people will die based on a choice of location, which seems like a pretty terrible reason for people to die. 150 Duke is a fantastic location. It has room for all of the wraparound services necessary. It has room for methadone. It has room for counseling. It has room for people who want to talk to somebody about going to rehab, to treatment. It has the space we need, and it's in a fantastic location. You work in City Hall. You know that people who use drugs and who struggle are around here anyways. It's not as though it's going to bring a new element here. It's a 3.5 walk from St. John's Kitchen, a 3.5 minute walk from St. John's Kitchen, and really, I think, at the best possible place that you could conceive of putting a safe injection site in this city. I just want to add, when I spoke at council, at regional council, I added that my best friend Colin died, I guess, just shy of 3 weeks ago now, alone in his apartment after leaving detox because he was, my guess is he was too ashamed to call myself or one of his other friends and say that he needed to use, or that he wanted to use, and that he needed somebody to look out for him. So instead, his parents found him 2 days later, sitting on his couch, head between his legs. That kind of thing can be prevented with the safe consumption site. And the only way we're going to get one is if we go with 150 Duke. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next delegation is, and I apologize if I pronounce this incorrectly, is it Sade Crossan? And please correct me if I pronounce it incorrectly.
No, you pronounced it perfectly. And actually, hello, I'm surprised as anyone that I'm here because I didn't have anything prepared because I thought that I was taken off the delegation list, but that's okay. I'm here now. If anyone remembers me, I spoke at the last meeting. Full disclosure, my father is Rob Crossan, the Deputy Chief of EMS, but he has nothing to do with me being involved in Sanguine or anything like that. I recently completed a photo essay on harm reduction, and that is where my interest lies in this. I just want to say my heart is so light after hearing the news that instead of voting for, like Jenny and Johnny just said, a site that absolutely would put an end to all the hard work I've seen these wonderful people doing in our community, we are going with hope and love in some place that makes sense. And in my speech on Monday, I said, I hope that I'm not a naive millennial for thinking that you all are in local government to make a difference, and you proved me right, and thank you so much. I'm not a naive millennial. You are here to make a difference, and I'm so grateful. And thank you so much. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Crossan. Our next delegation is Jessica Strickler. Welcome, Ms. Strickler.
Thank you. Before I begin, I'd just like to say that my views and my comments are my own and in no way reflect my place of work. When I signed up to speak today, it was only days after an overdose had claimed the life of someone I knew. I'll be 30 in 2 months, and I've been to 11 funerals, including that of my high school sweetheart and a partner I loved very much. I tell you this because their deaths were preventable, and because I'm a member of your community who wishes to express gratitude for your positive position for the 150 Duke Street. For the 150 Duke Street, safe consumption site. My departed loved ones can't thank you, but I can. And I would also like to put forward that I am a former addict with a house, with a partner who loves me very much and is with me today. I have a career at an institute at a local university, and I'd prefer not to mention which one. But I am all right because I was able to access services that helped me. And I'm an exception to the norm. And unfortunately, for many of my friends, access to services that they needed were not available to them. The site at 150 Duke Street is important, not just because it's going to save lives, which is, the most important part of it, but because we're setting a precedent. It's setting a precedent for our community, and it makes sure that we are sending a clear message to people in Waterloo and in Kitchener that we care, and we are there for them. There's no one left behind, and we are people who believe that everyone in our society deserves a chance to get better. I'm an exception to the rule, and that shouldn't be okay. And I am happy to thank you for the positivity and the growth that we're working towards, but if anything is important, it's that we make sure that no more people die, because it doesn't have to be that way. We can be the change makers. We live in the innovation district, and innovation is what we should be doing. We're innovators. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Strickler. Our next delegation, and if I can ask you to lower the podium, Mr. Clerk, is Reverend Preston Parsons from St. John the Evangelist Anglican Church. Welcome, Reverend Parsons.
Is it in place? Yeah? Okay, great.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Marsh, and councillors, I'm the Reverend Dr. Preston Parsons. I'm the rector of St. John the Evangelist. And we are the parish that is right across from 150 Duke Street. But that's almost immaterial because really any of these three sites that have been proposed are not much more than 2-minute walk away. They're all in that sense in terms of where they are located. We're not talking about a huge difference in distance. But I am here to speak in favor of putting CTS in at 150 Duke Street. I hope we all wish that CTS wasn't a necessary thing in our world. But as it turns out, it most certainly is. They save lives. We are facing and are in the middle of an extraordinarily deadly health crisis. And we need to do what we can, considering the politics of our age, to get that to happen. But the reason I support, and St. John supports 150 Duke Street rather than Victoria and Weber is simply because 150 Duke makes for a much more likely and secure application for funding to the province. The province has already signaled saying that they have never done a new build for a CTS site. The cost of a new build, at least according to the numbers that we have in public, are extraordinarily high and are well above or at least equal to the maximum amount of money that they've spent already. And it takes into account the research done by the region. I can't imagine that this provincial administration has people over at Queen's Park just waiting to spend more money on social services. And so an application that says that we are on the same side as the region, that it's not going to cost more than other ones, and that it's going to work with existing properties will be much stronger and in fact simply likely rather than extraordinarily unlikely. And I don't think any of us really want to get down 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the road into a funding conversation. I don't know how many constituents would be happy to hear any of you councillors go to them and say, we'd really like to spend $1.5 million to build and $800,000 a year going forward for something that we probably could have gotten money for the province for if we had put in a better application. I'm not sure that's going to read particularly well among your constituents. I appreciate the Mayor's desire for balance very much. And I hope too that Kitchener can support development. But developers are doing all right. Developers are going to make a fair amount of money over the next number of years in Kitchener. And what I'm really glad to see is that even as we develop a Kitchener with higher population density, a better tax base, is that we can keep our heart. And this is what I take away from what Mayor Barry has said about balance, is that we can support development, but we can't, at the same time, that we don't lose sight of those people in our neighborhoods and in our city that are experiencing very real difficulties and who could very much benefit from support like consumption and treatment services. I would commend this motion to you for 150 Duke Street.
Thank you very much, Reverend Parsons. Our next delegation is Violet Umanets from the Sanguine Health Center. And did I pronounce your last name correctly, Violet?
Pretty close. It's Umanets.
Umanets, sorry.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you. So as noted, my name is Violet Umanets, and for the past 8 years, I've been the Manager of Outreach, Education, and Prevention Services for Sanguine Health Center. As part of my role, I do a lot of different things, but I work directly with people who use drugs, and I work behind the scenes. My job at its core, if I were to boil everything down, is to listen to the voices of people who use drugs across Waterloo Region and to then advocate on their behalf for their own health and well-being, as well as the health and well-being of our community. I consider my job to be an enormous privilege, even though this is not a job I ever thought I would hold or something I'd ever thought I'd be working in. For the past 2 years, I've been working on behalf of Sanguine in partnership with countless agencies and individuals across our community towards the creation of what we are calling consumption and treatment services for Waterloo Region. It has been an exceptionally difficult 2 years, as this process has been lengthy, fraught with emotion, and as I've personally struggled to reconcile the need for thorough research with the reality of more than 150 deaths due to overdose during that time. I can say that I loved so many of those people that we've lost, and I considered many of them to be my friends over the past 8 years that I have worked with them. I have never in my entire life experienced such ongoing, seemingly constant loss and grief. And I know that I'm not alone in this, but I am also so aware of the privilege that I hold. I can cry at work. I have access to counseling through my benefits. I can personally afford to attend counseling, and I have a supportive family and a supportive community in general. But I am also constantly thinking of the many people across this region who carry as much loss as I do, times 100, and the grief and the loss and the trauma within them, and they have nowhere right now to set it down. I had registered to speak today as a result of the motion that was originally before you. I was going to come in here fighting. On hearing that the motion was withdrawn, I was admittedly tempted to cancel my delegation, but I couldn't bring myself to do that.
It is always easy to complain. It is always easy to write angry letters, and it's easy to forget the positive side of things. And I know that all of you received hundreds of letters in protest of that original motion. And I honestly hope that at least a small portion of those same writers will send you their thanks if you choose to do the right thing for people who take drugs and for the people who love them in this community. I needed to be here today to tell you how grateful I am for this new motion, and I am grateful for all of the councillors here who have listened to the research, the statistics, the community voices, but most importantly for those of you who took the time to listen to the voices of people who take drugs. My job, as I noted, is to lend my voice to those people who are unable to speak loudly for themselves due to the stigma attached to drug use, and I will always consider that a privilege and an honour and be happy to do so. Nearly all of the concerns that I've heard about 150 Duke portray the people that I love very much in this community who use drugs as being aggressive, violent, dangerous, or scary. And I will tell you here, I have never had a job where I have felt safer. I have never worked with people who are so kind and caring as they hold on to their own traumas and struggle desperately to reconnect with our community. I have never felt unsafe at work, such as I feel comfortable bringing my children to work with me out in the community. You have begun your own work now of trust building within this very same community. For those of you who listened last week to the voices of Ralph and to Jenny and to Johnny and Aaron and Natasha and Brittany and Jess, all of whom identified as people who have or have in the past used drugs. By trusting them as the experts in all of this, you've begun the process of allowing more voices to be heard. You've begun reducing the stigma, and that to me is the true meaning of community, when we can hear from as many voices as possible without stigma or shame or fear, including about the ugliest, darkest things that some of us experience. On my first visit to 150 Duke Street, and I will admit that I'm an emotional person, I burst into tears on walking into that space because this is a space that people I love deserve. It is bright, it is open, there are windows, and there are spaces for every single service that people in our community who use drugs need and have told us that they want, all in one place that can be accessible to them the moment they are ready to access whatever that service, assistance, or help may be. Sanguine and all of our partners are looking forward to the work ahead of us, and we know it's going to be hard work and a lot of it. We remain committed to doing what's right for people who take drugs, but also for our friends, our family members, and the people who love those who take drugs. Our pride in the City of Kitchener for taking the lead in the region on this very issue, for demonstrating compassion, and for the willingness of our city's representatives and leaders to truly listen, it can't be overstated how grateful we are to you for that. We, the staff at Sanguine, and our patients and our clients and our community are grateful to have support from you. And if you proceed to vote, but you're still hesitant about this, and you still have concerns, I'm here to tell you that's okay. I was asked, and my team was asked, to trust in this process that got us to this point. The years of research while we watched people lose their lives. And I am asking you in return to trust our experience and our knowledge for what will happen next. We are looking forward to showing you the impact that kindness and positivity and support and connection and openness and genuine love for people who use drugs in our community can have. And we are looking forward to working with our entire community, those who use drugs and those who don't. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in this evening, Ms. Humanetz. Our next delegation is Mr. Ralph Schmidt. Welcome, Ralph.
Thank you. My name is Ralph Schmidt. I just want to first say thank you for coming around to 150 Duke. I know it's not set in stone yet, but after going by the place on Victoria Street, I realized how small that area was, and it's not even really big enough to sell lemonade from, like, let alone build a building, a brand new building. And yeah, I can't even figure out how that anybody could build a building on it. But with Duke Street, the location I think is like best because, like they said, it puts everything in one place because nobody wants to go get help, and there's nothing worse than getting told, okay, now you got to go here, you got to go there, because like we have it's just by the time you go to one place or another, by then the thought gets dropped, and it's by then you're sick, not feeling well, and you're back to square one, right? When you want to get help, you want help to be right then and there, and at least at 150 Duke, it's there if you need it, right? It's not just a safe injection site. It's the fact that, like, if you want treatment, it's there when you need it instead of being somewhere totally different. And I think that's like the big thing about it being all in one building and why it's so important. And yeah, I just found out that you guys had like changed everything, so I want to thank you so much for changing it. I read the newspaper this morning, and I was actually shocked, and I just want to thank you, like from the bottom of my heart and from the bottom of all the friends that I've lost. From like, I wish they were here to say thank you, because I know that it took a lot to change that, and I greatly appreciate it. And yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schmidt, for coming in. Next, we have Stephen Peterson. Stephen Peterson. Welcome, Mr. Peterson.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Since June 15, 2018, I've read everything I can find on drug consumption facility studies. I'm no expert, but I have read quite a bit from those who are. These binders here culminate my efforts over the last 10 months. I'd like to urge you to support the motion for 150 Duke Street West. I volunteer, at a residential care facility at 115 Water Street North, 125 Water Street North. This residential care facility is home for up to 25 residents that suffer from mental illness. If a CTS site is located at 115, it'll be located immediately beside them. These care facilities are at short demand, and residential spots are few and far between. After the announcement on June, some of the social workers that have individuals under their care, they pulled some of them out of the home because of the fears for their personal safety. During the CTS consultation session stage, residents and businesses within 250 meters and outside 250 meters were invited to give their input. And if you refer to the slide, we were asked to write our concerns and our worries on the pink sheets, and the benefits for each address on the yellow sheets. As you can see on the far left, that's 115 Water Street, all the concerns that the neighbors addressed. There's some concerns for 105 and 105 and 150, and then in the yellow sheets on the right-hand side, those are the benefits. And here again, 115 is on the left-hand side, and 150 Duke is on the right-hand side. So the neighbors are the neighbors that attended, and the residents of Kitchener that attended this meeting. It's clear that there's quite a few that had quite a few concerns for 115 Water Street. So, in conclusion, I would like to ask the members of City Council to add the following to the motion: that the City of Kitchener not support an application to the provincial government for funding to operate consumption and treatment services at the location of 115 Water Street North, and to remove it as an option now and at any time in the future. I'm suggesting no permanent site should be located at 115 Water Street North for two reasons. One, this address garnered the least public support for a CTS site than any of the other two sites. And two, there's a residential care facility for the mentally challenged immediately beside 115 Water Street North. And the safety and well-being of these individuals should be balanced with the needs of the CTS clients. I think there are several issues that need to be addressed before the motion regarding the temporary consumption and treatment services site be passed. I would like to see this motion be amended to include the following safeguards and revisions. No temporary CTS site should be established at 115 Water Street North, and a mitigating strategy needs to be formulated for the temporary site before it's operational. I think there should be regular monthly reviews involving the direct stakeholders, including the neighbors. The temporary site is only a temporary site, and I think there should be a legislative mechanism that needs to be put in place at the same time as the motion to ensure that this temporary site does not become a permanent overdose prevention site, especially if the provincial government does not fund a CTS site in Waterloo Region. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in, Mr. Peterson. Our next delegation is Ms. Irene Peterson. Welcome, Ms. Peterson.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Urbanovic and City Councillors. I support the motion to endorse 150 Duke Street West. This location is the most suitable. The consulting firm ICA Associates gave glowing marks to the 150 Duke Street West. The consultant's report and Waterloo Region's Public Health Department judged this address to be the best location for a CTS for the following reasons. It's the most accessible site, closest to the hotspot, and it's on the LRT corridor. Its large space allows for the full made-in Waterloo Region model, plus other healthcare services. It can accommodate daytime programming and rest spaces for clients to mitigate concerns related to the flow of clients into neighboring buildings. And most importantly, it received the most support by Kitchener residents. While 150 Duke Street West received the most public support, 115 Water Street North received the least support. As well, 115 Water Street North is crammed for space and only pathways to primary care and social services could be provided at this location rather than providing them on site. 115 Water Street is within a very sensitive neighborhood. Immediately beside it is a residential care facility that is home for up to 25 persons who are mentally challenged. They suffer from schizophrenia, delayed development, and bipolar disorders. Some of the residents are recovering from substance abuse. With the establishment of the CTS at Duke Street West, there will be a buffer zone between the CTS clients and those that reside in this care facility. And this is in line with Grand River Hospital's reply to the region's request to house a CTS in their premises. A letter from Grand River Hospital addressed to Mr. M. Murray, the CAO of Waterloo Region, stated that, quote, co-locating a CTS near such a withdrawal management program would introduce significant risk to a population actively engaged in their recovery from addiction, unquote. If the hospital objects to locating a CTS beside those recovering from addictions, then I feel a CTS site beside this care facility and its residents suffering from mental disorders that increase their vulnerability would also introduce a significant risk to their well-being. On the other side of 115 Water Street is a school that teaches English to young children. 115 Water is located within 200 meters of the St. Louis Adult Learning Center daycare. It's within 200 meters of a children's park, a Waterloo Region geared to income seniors apartment, and an apartment housing many children that live less than 200 meters away. There are several seniors and young children in the neighborhood, area around 115 Water. I would like to ask the City Councillors to adopt the motion to endorse 150 Duke Street West for this reason and those listed above. In addition, I would like to ask the members of City Council to amend the motion and add the following: that the City of Kitchener not support an application to the provincial government for funding to operate consumption and treatment services at the location of 115 Water Street North. With regards to the temporary consumption and treatment services site proposed, I have grave concerns that I think need to be addressed before the following motion is passed. Be it further resolved that the City of Kitchener support the establishment of a temporary consumption and treatment services site in an appropriate location within the City of Kitchener for a period of up to 24 months as an interim measure pending the completion of the permanent site. I would like this motion to reflect the following concerns. This temporary site should not be located at 115 Water Street North, given the reasons I have already presented. Before operating this temporary site, a mitigating strategy must be drafted, and regular monthly reviews involving direct stakeholders should be conducted. This temporary site is just that, a temporary site. If the provincial government does not fund a CTS site in Waterloo Region, this site is prohibited from becoming a permanent overdose prevention site. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in, Ms. Peterson. Our next delegation is Ms. Trudy Wagner. Welcome, Ms. Wagner.
Thank you. I was present when the mayor initially presented the site selection of 105 Victoria Street North. After extensive consultations were done of approximately 100 sites, 3 were chosen in Kitchener. The one submitted by the mayor became one of the 3. At the April 9th meeting, the mayor proposed that this site become the CTS. Many of us who spoke that day in favor of the 150 Duke Street West site were dumbfounded, as were many of the regional councillors. The last-minute plea of the land developer, who got the address of the Victoria Street site incorrect, were equally confusing. When asked if he had attended any of the consultations regarding sites, he stated no, he had not. Only a very few regional councillors or city councillors were seen in attendance at these meetings. Anyone who was truly concerned or had a vested interest in what happens would have been in attendance at the numerous meetings, consultations, etc. that were held from June 2018 to April 2019. Our ward councillor equally surprised us by agreeing that 105 Victoria Street North was the agreed location. Consultations suggested otherwise. 150 Duke Street was the site preferred by concerned stakeholders who make up the neighbourhood. For all the reasons previously given, 150 Duke Street West is the best site. The other concern that we have is that 115 Water Street North not become the temporary site. 115 Water Street North is part of a neighbourhood bordering Old Berlin Town, the heritage part of our city. Months of consultations, hours and hours spent writing letters, campaigning have led everyone to conclude that 115 Water Street North is the least desirable location. The home for the physically and mentally challenged next door should be given equal priority and not forgotten. 115 Water Street North is owned by the Working Centre, and Joe Mancini has many connections due to his extensive good works. I reiterate, we as a neighbourhood do not want 115 Water Street North as a temporary location for a CTS, but do agree with the site selection of 150 Duke Street West. Thank you.
Thank you for coming in this afternoon, Ms. Wagner. Our next delegation is Mr. Tyson Reeser. Welcome, Mr. Reeser.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sarah, we've been going through this process for a couple of years. I'm a landowner downtown. I have multiple units in rent. I own a business that's pretty community-oriented, and I've been dealing with drug issues for 12 years since we've been downtown, 15 in our home. I'm not happy with the things that happen downtown because of drug use, the robberies, crime. We have needles in our laneway. But at the same time, through this whole process for 2 years, I've overwhelmingly supported the need for a CTS. And I still do. 115 Water Street wasn't perfect. I still supported it because it's unconscionable that we still have people dying from this when we could prevent deaths. We talk about how close and how stigma and how bad these are to schools. I'm sorry, but across the street from you, you have an alcoholic premise that has people falling out of it all the time. If we're really concerned about what kids are going to see, we should look at that as opposed to something that hasn't even happened yet.
Tyson, I would just ask you to respect other people's opinions. They made their points. You're welcome to make yours.
Okay, I'll make my point this way then. Within City Hall, okay, within my own business, there's been multiple overdoses. City Hall's had overdoses. You can see needle containers, and there's a daycare in City Hall. So these issues, apart from who's going to see them, are still here. 150 Duke gives us an opportunity to have this site up and running very quickly, as opposed to 105, which may be more agreeable and is easier to hide from. Unfortunately, it's going to be something that we kick down the road for 2 years, with the possibility of really having funding. I asked the developers at the same time, if this is such a concern and you want to be part of this community as I have, to put resources back into the community and help us face it. Okay, I'm very excited that you've changed your mind, Sarah, and that you've supported her, Barry, and that you're coming up with the 150 Duke Street, because right now it's the most reasonable area for our neighbors, as well as the stakeholders involved. You've heard from many of the drug users. But at the last part of this, all of you as councillors, I ask that you take a look at what the experts are saying. Public Health has promoted this as the best site. It's a multi-headed strategy to affect the issue that we're having with the opioid crisis. It is just not a consumption center. It is also the first aspect for people to seek secondary resources. I help volunteer in a harm reduction van. I've seen it myself. There's a public health nurse as well as a social worker. Yes, people are getting needles to do drugs. They're also getting involved with somebody who can help get them to the next step, who can help find where they're going to put their property if they want to go into rehab, so that they don't lose everything, who can help hold their hand, get them close, and get them there on Monday. That's what I see CTS as being, is that first step in a multi-headed solution that we're trying to tackle with the opioid crisis. And I really hope that you support this, and I support all the councillors here, as many of you have seen from our customers, the overwhelming support that we had, and the letters that you've received. And again, as a resident, a business owner, and a landowner downtown, I fully support this, and I'm within 300 meters of all three sites. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reeser. Next delegation is Jody Swinnell.
I think it's
Welcome, Ms. Swinnell.
Thank you. When it comes to the drug crisis, there's an attitude among people I've noticed over the past year that can be summed up as, oh well, it's going to happen anyway. It's this attitude that will make victims of us all. The desire should be to stop this epidemic from spreading and heal our whole community. I think that the reason our community is divided on these tough decisions regarding CTS and where to put it is because there are two things happening together that are directly related to the drug crisis. Organized crime is escalating and people are dying. CTS only addresses a percentage of the latter, and this is not enough. It is noteworthy that we recognize the safety of its clients, and the surrounding community is also essential. Now that the region has agreed on opening a temporary overdose prevention site while a permanent CTS is being considered at Duke Street, I wanted to include a suggestion if 150 Duke can't be used as an OPS while under construction, After visiting the Guelph Community Health Center and seeing the overdose prevention site while it's open, I believe the best place to put a temporary one here, again, that's if it can't go at Duke while it's under construction, would be at our own Kitchener Downtown Community Health Center. I spoke with Ms. Klotz, a staff member from the center in Guelph, and she explained that the reason she perceived the success of their overdose prevention site was due to its location in a previously existing healthcare center that already provided a variety of health and social services to the marginalized population, and this made sense to me. Our own Kitchener Downtown Community Health Center already focuses on the health needs of clients who have barriers to accessing healthcare, including the homeless population. If an OPS was indeed purposed not just for preventing overdoses, but also building relationships and trust to its clients to help them out of this vicious cycle, then where better to put it than connected to a health center already in place that welcomes the target population and has some necessary services in place for their needs. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in, Ms. Winnell. Our next delegation is Joe Mancini. Well, welcome, Joe, and
there we go.
Congrats on a great Saturday night.
I think it's a good opportunity to look at what 115 Water Street is, what it could be. Obviously, as you saw from the public consultation, it wasn't the most favored site, mostly about in the actual neighborhood. But when you look at the McNaughton, Hermson, Britton planning report, they said that Water Street is not a pedestrian area. It's separated from your main pedestrian areas in downtown. So the fact that it was separated from the downtown made it an ideal spot. It faces the train station. So we're not all along. We've never said that this is the only site. Our purpose in purchasing the house was when there wasn't a site. Then obviously Duke Street people seem to want to use the resources to build that up. We will still build up Water Street, and I'm going to show you the presentation on that. But there's the other context, of course, is that at St. John's Kitchen, where we deal with an overdose a day, where we're working with people through the medical clinic. Many of you saw at the mayor's dinner on Saturday night the information about that clinic of 2,000 people that are supported, the 2 nurse practitioners, the 3 different doctors, part-time and full-time doctors, the 3 psychiatric outreach nurses, the clinic staff, the 5 or 6 outreach workers. So St. John's Kitchen has built up a context for providing the kind of support. We think Duke Street will also be part of that support. Duke Street isn't going to solve anything any more than Water Street is or St. John's Kitchen is. So there's a lot to be said for the development of more and more resources, and that's what we'll show here as Water Street. On the other hand, Water Street to us is still a very viable option as a safe consumption site. Some of the stuff on the Inner City Health Alliance is up there, and the main point about the vision of Water Street is the housing. That's the main point of purchasing the housing. The 8 interim housing units, 3 beds in collaboration with Waterloo Regional Police for drop-off beds, 3 beds that align to hospital care for those using injectable drugs, and 2 respite rest beds. The house will offer washroom, showers, laundry, relationship-based model services for those unable to access mainstream services. And peers will be a very big part of the support, as will kind of a larger kind of group room where meetings and things can go on. So there's all kinds of stuff about the kinds of services that we'll be able to offer in that space. And then the further information on the integrated model that Water Street will become. And I think the main point there is that it can be the safe injection site, and that's their safe consumption site. So there's just the reasoning for that. The site consideration, the site is separated from busy commercial areas and active public spaces. It's not near a daycare. It's not near any high school. And that was all done through the SEPTED. There's been 2 SEPTEDs from McNaught, Hertz, and Britain Planning, as well as Waterloo Region Police Services. That's Water Street in relation to St. John's Kitchen. When you look at, this is a great picture, people in Kitchener, you look from the train station, Water Street has a different look than if you look at it from the neighborhood. And of course, the point of St. John's Kitchen being so close with daily meal, medical clinic, hospitality house, community dental, downtown street outreach, all integrated around that site. These are the plans. You can see the main floor bedrooms on the main floor at the back. This is an extension that will soon be built. We're just in the process of getting the building permit, which should come any time now. Medical clinic in the front. That medical clinic can be used for safe injection site, but it can be also used by the Working Center for all kinds of other supports, including possibly a hydromorphine pilot project. And then upstairs, more bedrooms, counseling rooms, group room. So that's look at that, within 7 seconds. That's and lots of support as well. So that's the Water Street site. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Mancini, for coming in tonight. Our next delegation is Ms. Simone Morrison. Welcome, Ms. Morrison.
Thank you. So my name is Simone Morrison. I'm 27 years old. I live close to downtown Kitchener, and I also work at Sanguine Health Centre as our van coordinator. I'd like to start off by explaining a little bit of... Last week I spoke at Regional Council, and for those of you who were there, I first said my own speech, and then I read my sister's speech. She had signed up to be a delegate, but unfortunately on the day of was not able to make it. That same day, in the morning before I came to meet with everybody, I went to visit her in her home. And she had been up for 3 days and using drugs, and I was concerned to leave her in that moment because I was unsure if when I returned if she would still be alive. Not to mention in that home there was quite a few other people using in the same home as well. So I went to the meeting, and after the meeting I went back to see her, and she was in the exact same position on her couch that she was in when I had seen her 8 hours previous. This is kind of a common theme within my sister's life. I would like to mention that where she lives is about a block or two away from the proposed site at 150 Duke. So for anybody who has concerns about people who use drugs being in the area, it's already there. I would also like to mention yesterday I went to go out for dinner with my mom, and as we got off on a cutoff on the highway, I found what we had seen on the side was a man who was face down in the dirt by himself. It was raining yesterday. Face down in the dirt, hood up. Nobody was around. Here's the highway, he's right here. Not one car had stopped. My mom pulled over the car, I got out and I went to see him. I shook him, he did not move. I shook him again, still did not move. In that moment, I decided, wow, I literally might be interacting with somebody who's not with us anymore. I lifted his hood, and as I did that, he came to, and I was very happy that he was okay. But I thought to myself, if I had not been there, would anyone else have stopped to see that he was okay? Regardless of how anybody morally feels about what has brought that person there, that's the reality. It is not okay that we have people who are face down in the dirt while it's raining, possibly dying by themselves. That's somebody's friend, that's somebody's brother, that's somebody's partner. 150 Duke is a location that is feasible to have all of the services that are needed to keep people alive, to keep people healthy, and to keep people safe. You have people who are willing to do the work and people who are good at that work. And you've heard from so many voices over letters, over delegations, all of these things, from people who would use the services, who are the experts in their own life and know what they need. And they've all expressed to you guys that 150 Duke is the best place to offer the services that they so desperately need. I'd like to thank Sarah and Barry for the post that you guys made yesterday and the decision that you've made. We really hope that for anyone else who's uncertain that you guys will follow along and make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in. Our next delegation is Samantha Estuesta.
Thank you, Council. As noted, my name is Samantha Estuesta, and I'm a resident of Ward 10 with my partner Justin and my baby Morgan over there. The 140-year-old house that we own is roughly 6 blocks away from 150 Duke. We bought this house a year ago knowing that our house was within the warning limits of the proposed sites. I support Councillor Marsh's motion to turn 150 Duke into a safe consumption site. I tweet about it a lot during nap time. My child will attend Sedeby Public School, 9 blocks away. I will return to working out of the Communitech building after my maternity leave, 5 blocks away. We will attend Mass at St. Mary's on Sunday, 1 block away. When there is a safe consumption site in downtown Kitchener, I will feel safer than I do now. Moreover, I will feel much prouder of my city and my region. Councillor Marsh, I am proud to be your constituent as you show the exact type of leadership that we need in this region. The ability to listen to academics, frontline organizations, support workers, and those community members who would use a safe consumption site. Moreover, this type of leadership is people-centered. In January alone, 10 people died from an opioid overdose, 20 as of April 1st. People. People who had siblings, parents, children, partners, and friends. Above all, they were people. I would like to remind Council and the people in this room that dead people can't buy condos. Dead people can't beautify your old Berlin neighborhoods. And with that said, I do not echo the suggested motions to ban 115 Water Street from being turned into a temporary consumption site in the interim if chosen. I'm sure Violet, Johnny, Jenny, and the many others who would use or work at a temporary CTS would agree. We cannot spend the entire timeline of renovations at 150 Duke without a CTS. Mayor Urbanovic, at the State of the City last week, you said change for Kitchener is strength, it's community, it's prosperity. I implore this council to have the strength to support Councillor Marsh's motion to create a SCS at 150 Duke, to create a healthcare community that will treat those with addictions with humanity while giving them access to supports to transition them to sobriety, and to tie our metrics on prosperity to keeping people alive instead of NIMBYism. Creating a CTS at 150 Duke will be a big change for Kitchener. But as you yourself said, Mr. Mayor, above all, it's good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Estuesta. Our next delegation is Anna Beard. Welcome, Ms. Beard.
Hi, how's it going? Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you for allowing me to speak with you today. My name is Anna Beard, and I've been a resident of Kitchener for the last 4 years. Moving into the Kaufman Building in 2015 was one of the best choices I've made in my 13 years in Waterloo Region. To me, downtown Kitchener is the perfect balance of grit, innovation, and diversity. I support the idea that in Kitchener, everyone is welcome. I'm here today to express my support towards the amended motion introduced by Councillor Marsh, that the City of Kitchener support Regional Council in submitting an application to the provincial government for funding to operate consumption and treatment services at 150 Duke Street West. The leadership shown by this amendment suggests that Kitchener City Council and the community members they were elected to represent recognizes the urgent need for CTS within the City of Kitchener and across the region of Waterloo, and more importantly, that we are out of time for delays. As you know, the province of Ontario has capped the number of CTS locations to 21.
16 locations are already operational, and this region is in desperate need of one of those final spots. Thank you for understanding that 150 Duke Street West is the ideal site for CTS in Kitchener. Thank you for recognizing it as a site with good square footage that can be renovated quickly and has a better chance of provincial approval. Thank you for noticing that the province has yet to fund a build that is brand new or a build that can't fit wraparound services alongside safe consumption and harm reduction, two mandatory services with any CTS. Thank you for understanding that the budget presented by the Ford government reduces funding for healthcare units across this province by approximately 27%, resulting in fewer clean needles, fewer naloxone kits, and fewer staff available for harm reduction and education. With a system that is already stretched beyond capacity, thank you for understanding the urgency in this decision, including supporting CTS at 150 Duke Street West. We are racing against the clock and dealing with a government who has already shown that increasing access to health risk is a larger priority than trying to reduce them. Closer to home, this means doing everything possible to show vulnerable members of our community that their city and furthermore their region has their back. Yes, the government could very well deny our application for funding, but your leadership shows that we will not stand by as people continue to die. That we will not continue to support a narrative that vilifies a community, that we will do everything not to miss out on this opportunity for CTS completely. We know that these services are essential and desperately needed. We know that the number of lives at risk continues to increase daily. I ask you to vote to support the motion for Regional Council to submit an application to the provincial government for funding to operate consumption and treatment services at 150 Duke Street West. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Beard, for coming in. Our next delegation is Abby Craigie. Welcome, Ms. Craigie.
Thank you. So, I am a survivor of Laurel Street in Waterloo, in case anyone knows where that is. We had a lot of outreach there. We've had a lot of people die there. And I'm a survivor. I'm sober 9 years in May, but I still truly believe in a safe injection site for my fellow human beings who happen to be addicts. So my name is Abby, and today I'm here to represent the fallen and the people that are still falling. We've had so many people passing away in the last 2 years, a total, I believe, of 159. So I'm here to represent the ones and the families who have lost loved ones, and for those who are afraid to come and speak because they suffer from addiction. These are humans, not second-class citizens. These could be any one of your children. This is a safe injection site that we need because one day this may be where your child may have to go one day. We cannot predict the future. Sorry.
It's okay, take your time.
Sorry, I lost my spot.
No, it's okay.
And their well-being is my well-being. I support this cause and this site, all of it, because we are in a major crisis. Perhaps the pharmaceutical companies should be building a lot of these sites because they have created an epidemic and have never been held accountable for their actions. Perhaps a buck of beer should disappear. Perhaps the Jumbotron should disappear. Perhaps we should start standing up for our fellow human beings. They are not a second-class citizen. I did not grow up and think one day I would be a prostitute, addicted drug addict. That was not my goal at 5 years old. I'm here today because of the Sanguine Health Centre. I'm alive because of them. I did 2 back-to-back rehab centers. And I had many counselors from Sanguine help me throughout those times. And I'm celebrating 9 years sobriety in May. The pharmaceutical companies have created these problems, and they've never been held accountable for their actions. It does not matter how an addict became an addict. or why they are where they are now. We as a community need to help make it better for our community and for them. I have lost countless friends and so many to remember. 3 weeks ago, 2 men died, one of which I tried to save on King Street in Kitchener. He did not make it. He didn't make it because he had just gotten out of jail and he had used. Perhaps if we had had this safe injection site, he may have went there to use it. We do not realize that once a person goes into the jail system as well, they think they can come back out and use the same way they did when they went in. They cannot. We need to help save them. You're helping save your own children. And if you have ever spoken to a parent who has lost their child, I have, to an overdose. Ever talked to a child about losing their parent due to an overdose? Maybe you should. We as a whole are responsible to protect our fellow men and women and children, and addiction does not discriminate. Help save lives. We are not enabling, we are trying to help save their life. Even if you think they don't matter, they do matter. They are someone's mother, father, son, daughter. Please help by being a part of the solution. It is a matter of life and death now, and we have so many programs trying to help them, but they cannot do it alone, and they go home every night with heavy hearts. And somehow, here I stand today, 9 years sober. I have 2 grandchildren, 2 more on the way. And I had my friend die of an overdose in my bedroom, of a heroin overdose. And that was the worst thing I ever had to do, was when his mother came to me and said, why? Well, because it doesn't discriminate. And I'm sorry that people find that this might not be a good site. It is the perfect site. But we also have to bring education into the school system about drugs and awareness. We don't have enough of that. We take away a lot of our stuff in school systems. We should be teaching them this. We should be having other places go in there and drug addicts speaking to children in high school so they get the awareness of what the reality is. And if you've ever found somebody dead of an overdose, you will never forget that. So every day I put on my running shoes, I walk in honor of my friend that had died in my bedroom. So just remember, I was once a 5-year-old little girl that had dreams and goals. But one dentist had prescribed me some medication, and it went from there. So a lot of people have to be held accountable, and I'm sorry I'm over my time.
It's okay.
But this is very heartfelt for me. This is not something that just happens overnight. You don't become a drug addict overnight. This all stems from dentists, doctors, pharmaceutical companies, and the list goes on. So they need to help also be part of the solution. So please vote. Please say yes to Duke Street. You're going to be saving lives instead of picking them up off the street. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Craigie. Our next delegation is Bernie Neimer. Passing. Okay. Stephen Litt's gone. Nancy Ney. Ms. Nancy Ney. Welcome, Ms. Ney.
Hello, Mayor and everybody. I'm here and I have concerns for 2 groups of people. I live right next door at 156 Duke Street. I happen to be the superintendent. We have 39 apartments plus 3 next door. I'm very concerned about the people that will use it. I know a lot of the people that come through our parking lot. They're very fine people. I befriended them, and I have a heart for them. What is going to happen for safety? You're open from 10 till 10. What happens after that? Where do these people go? There's 15 feet between our super apartment building and the Duke Street. And it's like a walk-through. And our windows are at eye level. What's the safety for the neighbors? I'm not saying these people are violent. I'm not saying that. I haven't seen that. But when the place is closed, where do these people go? And that's a concern. I pick up clothing in the parking lot. There's needles. I've seen people go into the dumpster and jump into the dumpster and close the lid and sleep there overnight. My heart goes out to these people. I don't want that to happen. But on the other hand, I have tenants to take care of. We've had attempted break-ins, needles in the parking lot. Again, I hope you can understand, in no way am I against it. I wish I could do something. And my concern is, too, also, for the people that will be working there in the 150 Duke Street and the people going in. This was a dry cleaners years ago. And I want to say, out of personal experience, is it contaminated? I worked in a dry cleaners, and my doctor was looking for cancer. I was being tested for cirrhosis of the liver. And due to that, and it was because of the product they used, I had to leave. And I had 2 other employees that worked with me were very ill. So is it contaminated because it was a dry cleaners? That's my concern, not only for the workers, but for the people that are going to go in there, that are going to be served. So, and I wish you well if you open those doors. I would be more than happy to volunteer as long as they're safe and my tenants are safe. And you provide some sort of a security for the people that live in your area. The big apartment, Alexanian on Water Street, they have a bus that picks up children. I would say 30 children, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't know how many, but it's 10, 11 stories. They go to school every day. They play in our parking lot. So that is a concern of mine. And also my concern is for the people that go there. I want the people that use 150 to be safe, secure, and provided properly. And I want our tenants to be secure and safe also. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much for coming in, Ms. Ney. Just on your last question, I will just say that the regional facilities management department would obviously ensure the concern that you've raised is not an issue before anything would go in there, and so that would be dealt with through that department. Our last delegation that I have registered is Andre Laverne. Sorry, well, I didn't have the Reverend there, so welcome, Reverend Laverne.
Mr. Mayor, councillors, staff, colleagues and friends, a couple of weeks ago I was asked where I would spend Holy Week. I work for our national office. I'm not necessarily assigned to a parish. And I did not think that I would begin Holy Week at this sort of meeting. But somehow it seems entirely appropriate. The themes kind of interweave. Last summer, the Eastern Synod of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Canada met for its every 2-year convention with more than 200 delegates, many from the region of Waterloo. I was a delegate. We convened under the theme, Liberated by God's Grace, which is very Lutheran, to be neighbor, something that Lutherans have not always done very well. Who is my neighbor? "Who is my neighbor?" the lawyer asks Jesus. And Jesus tells him the story of the Good Samaritan who tended the wounds of someone of a community that his community didn't much care for. One of the resolutions we passed at the Assembly encouraged our membership to support safe injection sites where identified and needed in our neighborhoods. The majority was overwhelming. The need is clear and a site has been identified. We trust the process. Our synod offices are located not too far from here, so this is our backyard too. And my bishop is no stranger to picking up the paraphernalia of the activities of the night before. So we're in. I'm here to support the current process and the recommendation of the region's public health people. We trust their due diligence and considered opinion. I want to offer a word of gratitude to Mayor Barry and Councillor Serra. Politicians don't change their minds except at their own risk, their own peril these days. We live in a very polarized sort of world, and our discourse is polarized and polarizing. And so they've changed their minds, and I think that is helpful. I could stop here and go back to my seat, and you'd have one more tick in favor of the Duke Street site, and you could go on to whatever else you're doing. What brings me to this meeting, however, is not my caller. I'm here as a father whose wife died young in life, and whose son, who was in his teens at the time, crawled into a well of darkness where he has lived for half his life. If it were not for the sort of compassion he received from frontline safe injection folks, he would not be alive to speak to you with a voice of experience and the voice of hope for the better days he has come to know for others who live and die at the margins of community life. Please, let's trust our public health people. They are wise. That's why we hire them. And let's not fling one more hurdle into a process that has gone on long enough. Please vote in favor of the recommended Duke Street option. I'm grateful for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend Laverne, for being here with us. Those are all the delegations that I have today. Is there anybody else that wanted to speak but didn't register? Yes. If I can just ask you to give your name and address when you come forward. Sorry? Oh, sorry, just your name.
Hi, I'm Candace Bose. I did register, but I was picking up my children. And this goes a lot faster than the LRT debates. Mayor Barry and Councillor Marsh, and to the rest of the council as a whole, I'd like to say thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I've been a resident of Kitchener for 11 years now, living in Ward 10 for the past 7 years. I love my community and I love my neighbors. I don't often have a need to leave Ward 10. I find all that I need, my kids' school, my work, our faith community, the market, the park, and the Iron Horse Trail. We have many young families around us, and many a door to knock on to borrow that proverbial cup of sugar. We also live directly across the street from 3 dry houses that are right in our residential community. And generally, these men have been ideal neighbors. We have no complaints. We also live in close proximity to a church that operates a winter supper program, feeding over 200 precariously housed or employed citizens every week. My husband and I have been involved in local politics for nearly 10 years, first in support of cycling infrastructure and LRT, and more recently very active in public consultations around city planning. We own property, and we are raising a family here. We are deeply invested in this community. And I'd also like to share that I also have a sister who's struggling with opiate addiction for well over 10 years now. Many times a day I think about her and how vulnerable she is to overdose and the severe lack of services and informed primary care physicians and nursing staff. The severe lack of services such as informed primary care physicians and nursing staff that provide testing and many kinds of harm reduction services. In the last month alone, she has been brought to hospital by police 12 times, and each time the ER doctors have released her saying, she's on drugs and there's nothing we can do about it. This is a huge strain on emergency services. But you see, my 25-year-old sister doesn't simply have a drug problem. She has a trauma problem. And as we see from things like the #MeToo movement that have become very popular, trauma, especially for women, is rampant. And trauma strikes everyone, no matter your age, your race, your income, or your neighborhood. Opioid addiction is not limited to people of low income or any social class in particular. Anyone can easily find themselves in need of a safe injection site. This doesn't inherently make them dangerous, and in fact, having a safe injection site nearby would in fact make many of these public spaces safer, with better access to needle disposal, relief on emergency services through the wraparound care provided. The property at 150 Duke is a superior choice for many reasons, and I'm glad to hear that you've withdrawn your motion. Because a safe injection site is far too important to risk losing altogether in these hurdles. I'm sure many people have discussed with you at length the reasoning and importance behind this decision, so I'd like to focus simply on this. Any one of us in this room could become a drug user in need of an SCS very quickly. And as you see on some of the t-shirts around the room, nice people use drugs. So, as a resident of downtown Kitchener, I say yes in my backyard, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in, Ms. Bowes. Was there anybody else? Yes. Sorry? Okay. Good. Welcome, Mr. Ickham.
Yes, I actually registered as well. I'd like to talk about this issue, not just in terms of the 150 Duke Street, which I support, but generally on the drug issue as a whole. Over the last few months, we have been running a pop-up safe injection site. Over the last week, we have had 30 overdoses. We have had 18 women who have reported sexual assault because the only place they could find to shoot up was in some creepy guy's house who took advantage of them when they were passed out. Since we've started our political work over the last 10 years, we've lost over 400 people that we know that we have worked with to this problem. And I'd like to point out that 60% of people in Waterloo region who have an opioid problem start with prescription drugs, many of which find themselves in issues of pain. Recently, the pain doctor in Kitchener lost his license once again for standing up for patients with terminal illnesses such as HIV and others, and these people are now forced to score drugs from the streets. Some of the people who use our sites are not the typical delinquents that one hears in the newspapers and stuff. We have people of all ages, many of them 50 plus, who have fallen on hard times because they have not been able to access pain doctors, but have been using opiates for quite some time so they could manage their issue, in many cases terminal. I myself watched my mother die under 2 milligrams of hydromorphone because the doctor at the time, despite the fact that she had a terminal illness, did not want to deal with the bureaucracy, and so she died a miserable death in pain because of decisions that bureaucrats made. the drug problem isn't going to go away. Because the drug problem is bigger than the drug problem. The drug problem is a pain problem. The drug problem is an exploitation problem, and the drug problem is a trauma problem. And until those issues are addressed, the opioid crisis will continue. What we need to do is we need to look at this and try to find solutions that actually work. I saw somewhere on Facebook, criminalizing drugs doesn't put drugs in jail, it puts people in jail. And I think that if we honestly had an assessment of people in this room on both sides, everyone here at some point in time has had a prescription of Vicodin or Percocet or Oxycontin. And for some people, that's fine. Other people, they have serious pain problems and can't just be caught up. And other people have trauma, and these prescriptions help them deal with this trauma. So I think that I am for a safe injection site, but more than that, I am for solutions that actually help people. People don't die because they use drugs. People die because they buy drugs off the streets from people who just want to make money. People die because they don't know how much drugs they're getting, they don't know what their dose is, and the fentanyl crisis isn't a fentanyl crisis in the sense that fentanyl is this horrible thing that wants to kill people. Fentanyl is a substance. The fentanyl crisis kills people because people don't know what they're getting. People don't know the strength they're getting. So I'm for a safe injection site, but more than that, I think we need to fight for a humane system that actually deals with things, and the abstinence model isn't working. If people are addicted, they need to have access to the drugs that they need, and they need to have access from a doctor who will monitor them and help them. Methadone is something very similar to this, but methadone is very much more addictive, and I'm out of time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ickham. There was a gentleman in the top row, and then there's a gentleman in this row. So if I can take the gentleman in the top row first. Oh, and there's one over there. Great. You can just identify yourself, please, sir.
Hi, my name is Andrew Moraga, and I'm a resident of Ward 10. I also came here originally with a different purpose, but then yesterday's statements were very relieving to me as an individual. I'm very proud that my councillor, Sarah Marsh, released that statement because I think it shows compassion, and I think it shows understanding. As many people have pointed out, drug use is often about trauma and about people who, we don't understand what they're going through, but they're so strong. And they're so motivated to continue. And they're trying to move on with life and move forward. And that's where a lot of the drug use comes in. And I think people have identified too pharmaceutical companies, which we have failed to hold as responsible as we could to prevent the manufacturing of a lot of these issues and a lot of these crises. I think what we need to start with is making sure that we're tackling stigma. And so many people have identified as well that we don't need to be afraid of people who use drugs, and that we need to reduce the stigma around that so those people feel comfortable accessing services, so that we can have these treatment services put out into the community with less pushback and more understanding. Because not only do we want a consumption and treatment services site, we want to be integrating these people into our community. We want to be sharing with them and talking to them and understanding them and treating them like the people that they are and that they deserve to be treated as. When I was younger, as a teenager, I was fortunate to be in circumstances where I had a supportive family and I had resources that I was able to use so that if I was experiencing trauma and difficulties, I had places to turn to. But there's a lot of people that I knew who ended up homeless who ended up using drugs, and it's usually a spiral. If you don't have support, if you're stigmatized, if you're experiencing trauma, people need services to help them. I think that we have a social responsibility to make sure that we're addressing this and to make sure that we're helping people and not leaving people out of our community and not treating them like second-class citizens. They're people, and we're all people, and we all deserve dignity, we all deserve respect, and we all deserve help. And I think that I'm so pleased to see that this motion for the Consumption Treatment Services site at 150 Duke Street is going forward, because I think it demonstrates the kindness and the heart and the compassion that we as people of Kitchener and Waterloo Region have. You know, a lot of what Kitchener is defined as is many of the social services that we have. We have the St. John's Kitchen, we have Sanguine House, and we have a large community of people who need our help and who need our understanding, and they don't need us to tell them what they need. We need to listen to them and give them what they're asking for and try to meet them where they're at so that they can live the best lives that they can live and that they want to live. And I think beyond that, if a moral and ethical argument isn't enough, the economics of situations shows that that be the case. You know, the amount of money that we save in terms of emergency room services when people can receive frontline care is a huge boon. When we have people who are experiencing lower rates of sexually transmitted disease and other bloodborne illnesses, when they can access clean needles and safe disposal sites, all of it is better for our community, for an economic reason, for our finances, but beyond all of that, the most important reason is that it treats people like people, and we respect one another, and we're helping other people. So I think as a Ward 10 resident, I would be very, very happy to see the Consumption Treatment Services application move forward for 150 Duke Street West. And I thank you for listening, and I hope that all the councillors here make the right decision, because you will be saving lives. And we will be demonstrating, not just to the people here, but to the community overall, that we value our citizens and we value our community, and that we care. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moringa. If I can ask the gentleman in the front row here. Welcome, and I can just ask you to give us your name.
My name is Mark Waddell.
Thanks, Mr. Waddell.
All right, so I wasn't prepared to speak here. I wasn't expecting to speak here, but I just had to say a few words. Last week, I'm going to be completely honest with you, I was completely neutral on the subject of a safe injection site. I didn't know much about it, but then I did some research, and then I kind of started to lean in support of it. But after hearing what the other delegates had to say today, I can tell you I am 100 in support. I'm 100% in support of a safe injection site in Kitchener. I think this is I think we have an amazing opportunity to lead the way in the region with this safe injection site on Duke Street. And I think just knowing people that have had problems with drugs in the past, this is something that we need. I'm a fairly young guy. A lot of my friends that have problems with drugs are in high school. They're younger than me. I just can't stress more that we need this. The way we've been dealing with drugs for the past decade clearly isn't working, because we still have a problem. And I think we need to at least try this. And I think that I'm all for this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council.
Thank you, Mr. Waddell, for coming in this evening. I believe we had, I guess, two last delegations. Go ahead, sir. Yeah.
Hello, Mayor and Council. My name is Jeffrey Beckner, and I'm heartened to see that you, the Regional Council, and the health professionals of the region see this life-threatening issue of the unsafe drug usage as important and critical as it is. I'm also heartened to see that so many people here have taken the time and the effort to show their support for a safe injection site and the associated health services. and I have great empathy and sympathy for everyone affected by this addiction problem. I have over 50 years experience in community and social services work in both Kitchener and in Toronto. I began as a youth worker in my late teens at the YWCA when everybody else was having a great time on Friday and Saturday nights. I was responsible for over 100 teenagers and young adults, and that was at the beginning of the popular drug-taking phase that has led to this. That said, later as an adult, I became one of the lead researchers and educators in education development for the roots of self-harm, abuse, and developing the abuse violence spectrum. And unfortunately, we're dealing with self-medicating here, and that's maybe to be addressed at another time. That said, again, I fully support there being a safe injection site, or however that is phrased. I, again, unfortunately, wasn't prepared for coming and speaking today. I caught a few things on the radio this morning. My concern is that what I had heard was that there was two options. One was on Victoria and one was on Duke Street. And unfortunately, I'll admit to having a learning disorder that affects my ability to write, affects my ability to communicate. It takes a long time for me to do things, and it required me to have a nap in the middle of this to even get it together. That said, I'm going to just say that I came up with some, what I call the main criterion for safe injection sites in Kitchener, choosing between the two locations. And again, I'm not against having it, and again, I hand it over to the best possible brains and innovators in the community. But basically, I came up with just a few reasons for to choose the 150 Duke Street West location compared to the Victoria Street location. And the reason to choose 150 Duke Street West was that the building already exists and it's in the downtown core. The reasons not to choose the 150 Duke Street West is primarily with the milieu or the demographic or the sorts of people that are affiliated with this, with drug usage. And I encounter them in my work either at some of the various meal locations in town for people that are marginalized, and usually it's people that are on the outside that are I don't want to denigrate them, but more than likely they're drug users. That said, reasons not to choose 150 Duke Street. It's right across the street from St. John's Church. Its congregants, its church services, and its programs. It's across the street from the Social Development Center that's in the basement of the St. John's Church, its programs, and its vulnerable and marginalized adults. Some of those are the Disability Human Rights Group and New Canadians and otherwise. It's across the street from Wilfrid Laurier School of Social Work and the Young University students. It's across the street from St. Louis School, its programs, its vulnerable adults, New Canadians, etc. It's across the street from Kitchener City Hall, city employees, families in Carl Lazare Square. It's adjacent to residents and expensive renovations to the building designed for complete other purposes. Now, reasons to choose Victoria Street location. It's in the downtown core. It's directly across from empty lots. It's directly adjacent to empty lots. It's directly adjacent to a paramedic ambulance station. It's close to the working center services, including community kitchen, outreach, mental health, and medical services. It has 4 public transit stops within feet of the property. Its availability of leading-edge construction. We have the availability of, just tie this off. We have the availability of leading-edge construction professionals, engineers, and innovators to design, fund, and build an inexpensive building in the shortest time possible on a location in Victoria Street. And reason not to choose Victoria Street location is the limited will, limited reasoning, and imagination and innovation of decision makers. Regional school boards in every major construction site throughout the region of Waterloo use large service portables for decades. If these are good enough for school children and tax-paying tradespeople, they're good enough for drug addicts. This was put together half just now and this other earlier. That said, I heard a bit of what Joe Mancini had to say, and I would suggest that we seriously consider what the Working Center has to, because it's done some incredible things in the community, and I would throw my lot in with them. And I want to again thank everybody for being concerned with this, and however it comes out, I'll be supportive of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. Yes, Mr. Cable. Welcome, Mr. Cable.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, thank you very much for the time. Very informative session this evening. Learned a lot. One of the things I'd like to say to begin with, as a local developer, I own some properties in the immediate area. I've developed other properties over the years, and not all developers are greedy people. A lot of us give back, and the message I think I'd like to say tonight is that many of us would like to help the situation, and we like to offer our assistance, whether it be in money or development experience, buildings, properties. Should none of these sites work out, or you need additional sites, I think many of us, and I speak for many other developers, that this is really, it's shocking to hear this information and the stories that are coming out. And we're all becoming aware of it, and something has to be done. So that being said, I'm going to ask the city to impose 2 conditions on whatever site you pick. The first condition would be to ensure the safety of all the neighbors, tenants, owners, people in the immediate neighborhoods around the safe injection site. The second condition I would ask is that you ensure the safety of all these people that are using these sites. We talk about a safe injection site, and the word safe has been used very loosely. I like to say a safe injection site in a safe building with a safe environment. So I'm going to kind of fall back on the social responsibilities of the city and the region to ensure that everybody is safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other delegations? Yes, ma'am. You can just identify yourself, please.
Yes, my name is CJ Perez. I'm a constituent of Sarah Marsh in Ward 10. All of my kids go to school downtown. We live downtown. I'm here to tell you tonight what I wasn't expecting. You know that you've withdrawn the motion that you were originally going to make, that you're introducing a new motion. I support this motion. I support having the safe injection site at 150 Duke. I think that's the right decision on the behalf of the city. Building exists already, can be started on right away, doesn't need to be built, can get the provincial funding for it, and all of the necessary wraparound services can be provided there. Before we came in here to this meeting, we were outside with 159 little flower pots laid out in front of City Hall. They represent all of the lives lost to overdose since the region started researching, consulting, investigating, and otherwise very thoroughly working to determine the need for what's now known as consumption treatment services and how best to implement that service. So it's been a very thorough process, and it exceeds what many communities have done in surveying the community and doing the reports. It has demonstrated the need for these services and the best way to implement these services. And in those 2 years, we've lost 159 people to overdose who could have survived had they had a safe injection site. No person is disposable. If this is a caring community, it does not allow people to die from something preventable. Fentanyl is poisoning the drug supply. People do not take drugs out of hedonism. Many people who take drugs from trauma in their past. They are coping with their trauma. As a caring community, we recognize that. We don't allow them to die because of this. We provide the help that they need. This has been debated a really long time. We have it in us right now. We have the sight to move forward. We must move forward before we lose any more people. So I want to thank you very much for changing your minds, Mayor Sarah Marsh, for withdrawing the motion that you were originally going to make tonight, for making this new motion. And I encourage all of you to do the right thing for our community tonight and vote in favor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Perez. Is that okay? We have another meeting after this, so I'm going to have to wrap it up on add-on delegations very short. Yes, welcome.
I'm Melanie Alexiou, and I live in Margaret Johnson's ward, whatever that is. Sorry, hi. I wasn't going to speak because this is very difficult for me, but here we go. I love an addict, and I can't help them for reasons far beyond my control. But I can help people here, and you can help people here. I do what I can. I carry a naloxone kit with me. I got trained by Violet Sanguine. But people aren't shooting up in the back of my car. They're not shooting up in my parking lot. They're not doing it at my work. We need to have a safe consumption site where people are using. It doesn't do any good for me to have my kit because the chances of me running into somebody that needs it are actually pretty minimal. But I do it just in case. The same reason that the region of Waterloo has over 400 AEDs installed all over the region, in workplaces, in businesses, in shops, in our rec centers, so that if somebody has a heart attack, we have an AED to save them. The AEDs are where the people need them to be. We need safe consumption sites where the people need it. 150 Duke Street is accessible. The infrastructure is there for the wraparound services. The space is there, and that is where the people who need it are. We need to start saving lives and stop arguing about it. The boat is sinking, and we're still arguing about what kind of lifeboats we need. We just need to get them in the water and save people. So thank you for making that decision.
Thank you very much for coming in this evening. Okay, I don't see any other hands, so I will go now to the motion, which Councillor Marsh has moved and Councillor Chapman has seconded. Councillor Chapman, you're in the queue. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'll start by thanking all the people who have contacted me or who have come here this evening. Thank you for your comments, your concerns, and suggestions on the different CTS sites that were being considered. Your words here this evening are very powerful. I think we all agree that we have an urgent need to respond to the opioid crisis in the region. I commend the people of Kitchener for their willingness to act, and act now. I'd also like to thank the regional government and public health for the work they have put into narrowing down the options. After reaching out to people whose views of the world aligned with mine and talking to different organizations in the community, I decided on the weekend that my support laid with 150 Duke Street. I'm glad to see the modified motion before us. So here's a summary of my thoughts. We have an opioid crisis. Too many people have died, and I do not want to be responsible for any more deaths created by obstructing the region's suggested site at 150 Duke Street. Drug dealing and alleyway consumption is already happening all around the core. Taking it indoors and providing the wraparound services will help address some of the problems produced by the crisis. No matter where we put the more permanent site, there's an immediate need for a temporary site. So while 115 Water Street would be an excellent site with a compassionate, experienced, people-centered staff which has years of experience building trust with vulnerable sectors of society, it was received by loud public opposition and came to be the least talked about option. I continue to support 115 Water Street as a suitable location, as I believe the Working Centre would be happy to have it on their property, and because I believe they know what it takes to address the struggles people in drug addiction and mental health experience. They serve the downtrodden daily, up close and personal. I look forward to touring their new facility at 115 Water Street when it's finished. Furthermore, I reject the amendment to prohibit a CTS at 115 Water Street. While 105 Victoria Street came to be the mayor's preferred option, it is a site that would have taken the longest time to get ready. It was the most expensive option. We had no guarantees that the province would fund it. Other than city staff, the mayor, developers, and a few residents, little support for this site was expressed to me. While 150 Duke Street will need work to get it up and functioning, it is a site that most of the residents who contacted me support, and most of you here too this evening also support. The space is large enough is large enough that it can accommodate all the necessary wraparound services and then some. It is what the region recommended after extensive research and public consultation. And while there were rumblings about it being a contaminated site, there was no concrete evidence to demonstrate that that was a problem in a building that would not be demolished or a site that would not be modified. So I reached out to Rob Deutschman, who had occupied the site after the dry cleaners was closed, and he informed me that they had conducted a Phase 2 environmental assessment. He said I could quote him here. This assessment acknowledged that while there was contained contamination, there was no need to take any remedial action. He also confirmed that there were no air quality concerns. Public health is aware of this contained contamination and is committed, from what I've been told, to regular air quality testing. So this is not an issue. While there are schools in the area, one of them has controlled access, the other one is a school of social work, and you couldn't ask for a better neighbor for this type of service. And the third one, I've been told, will be moving out of the area in the next couple of years. The 3 daycare centers in the area all have controlled access. So I've heard your comments, including those in bold capitals, bold letters. I respect my colleagues' decisions, and most importantly, we need to act. I see 150 Duke Street as a preferred site for the aforementioned reasons. In conclusion, I'd like to add that while this is a very important, indispensable service, it will not solve the problem of the opioid crisis on its own here in the region. I invite all levels of governments to work together on the prevention component and on solutions. The Crime Prevention Council has some great ideas that go beyond mere enforcement. There are things we can learn from the Icelandic experience, and I would just end by saying, let's be proactive. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Michaud.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Those were all very good words and a lot of research. This has been quite a week, to say the least, and I am just overwhelmed by the amount of people that came out today sharing your stories. It just shows the capacity for caring and just the fabric of what downtown Kitchener is made of. I am pleased that we're choosing 150 Duke. I think the region did a great job on their research, and I'm glad we're moving forward with this. And again, thank you so much.
Councillor Schneider. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Vrbanovic. I, from the bottom of my heart, want to thank each and every one of you who came to speak tonight. It takes a lot of strength, it takes a lot of courage, and you definitely moved hearts tonight with your speeches, so thank you for that. This whole process has been a a very good one. I want to thank our city staff. I want to thank the staff at the region of Waterloo. I want to thank our council. I want to thank the regional council. And I just want to say, too, that where our mayor went with Weber and Victoria, trust me, it came from a good place, a place of a caring heart, and same with Councillor Marsh. And I want to thank those who helped change their heart and change their mind with the way you interacted with them, because now we're moving in a unified direction and a very caring direction. We're going to save lives. We're going to give dignity. We're going to give respect. We're going to give care. Most of all, we're going to give love. And as a councillor, I know that as I look back, when it's all over for me, I'll look back at this night, and supporting this is one of the highlights and most important things I could ever do on this council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Galloway-Seelock.
Yeah, just really quickly. I know that it's been a crazy week for everybody that has been involved with this. And I know that at Regional Council, it was stated that we unanimously supported moving forward with a different site. I just need to say that that was done on limited information and no engagement done by the City of Kitchener for me to have made that statement at that time. And so I want to recognize that it was me being uneducated that led me to support what was at the time not Water Street, Victoria and Weber. And as soon as everything started happening after the Regional Council meeting, we weren't unified any longer. It was definitely something that I wanted to make sure that we listened to the constituents, that we listened to the people, and that we listened to the process. The process was done by the region and done extensively. And so I think it was important for us to listen to that and to continue to move forward. So I think it's great to be here today and be able to move forward, take responsibility and move this forward and work with Duke Street.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you. I, of course, want to thank everyone that came here and shared some stories that were very difficult to share. And I want to also clarify some things that you might have heard in the media. Talking to my fellow councillors throughout the last week or so, I want to make it clear, from everyone I spoke to, I don't think there's ever a chance that we weren't going to go ahead with the safe consumption site, whether it's a preferred location or not. We know the need. We're well aware of it, and we would never have that sort of thing behind us. We follow the evidence, and I guess the part that I guess irked us a little bit early on in that process is Kitchener does carry more than its fair share of social services in the region, and there's a cost to that. And perhaps it's not politically correct to say, but it's the truth. And if you don't want to take my word for it, it's a pretty simple exercise. Go talk to some of the downtown restaurants and businesses and ask them the challenges that they face versus some uptown Waterloo restaurants and businesses, and it'll become very clear. So with that in mind, this council, well, the previous council I should say, but largely returning, proactively passed a year ago a motion welcoming another social service in downtown Kitchener. There are only 5 clauses in that, and one, I'm going to cut off a bit of it, but it was essentially that the region work with us to determine site selection criteria and further consult with respect to the identification and review of a potential location and potential location options to ensure a mutually agreeable site is selected. I'm not sure that we saw that coming down from the region, and I'm not necessarily blaming the region. We're on a compressed timeline, but the fact of the matter is this was not a mutually agreeable site. Many of the delegations before us used terminology like losing our one shot in describing the Victoria Street site. Simply not viable was another comment. And a site that puts an end to all of the hard work I've seen was another comment. And you're all right. You're exactly right. The problem was the sites that came back to us should have all had that evidence-based criteria for us, so we could have done things to ensure that it wasn't right next door to really, I think, the largest destination, open door destination site in the region. I have concerns with that, and the part that bothers me going forward is the very fifth motion, part of that motion that we passed a year ago, is that the region work with us to make sure that it's mitigated. Now, I want to make the message absolutely clear that my concern going forward is that the region steps up and makes sure that all the amazing events, Chris Kindle Market, the Kitchener Minor Hockey, 5-year-olds coming to play hockey, that they do everything that they can to make sure they mitigate some of the behaviors that we're going to see as a result of this. Having said that, I am 100% in support of this. I will support it. I'd like to acknowledge the work of Councillor Marsh and Mayor Verbanovich especially in going through this.
Thank you. Councillor Ioannidis.
Thank you, Mayor Verbanovic, and thank you to all the delegations for their passionate plea for the need and the services that our community does need. And I want to reiterate some of the comments some of my fellow colleagues have made as well. And it was never in question whether or not we were not going to have a site here. Where I was coming from is, to me, I look at this as being an innovative community, in that all the sites to me could have been a viable solution. And whether it's because of neighbors not liking it, or whether because it was the economics. And to me, that was the part that disturbed me the most, was the economic portion that was being portrayed out there in some instances. This is a moral issue. If this is something that we need to do, and which is what we're going to do, I think the economics should have been thrown out the window. That shouldn't have even been a consideration.
Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, and I want to say thank you to all the people that stood up and were counted. I love to see public engagement and people to come out and have their say. We've had quite a past week. There's been a considerable amount of discussion among our council. I want to start by saying that this council has repeatedly supported our social services. And when this first came to council, it was unanimous here that we support these sites. Now, as time went on, there was a lot of discussion. Last week, there was some different concepts put forward, and I'm often used to seeing different concepts, and it's a good thing, because as a result of that, you have considerable discussion. You have good discussion. And it's unfortunate that we haven't had the opportunity to have the discussion in public, but that wasn't possible. But there was a lot of discussion went on, and now we're seeing the fruits of this discussion. I think we've come to the point now, and I think Reverend Laverne said it clearly, that the need is clear and a site has been identified. And I can see from where we're at that we've all come to that decision. And I think it's good that we've come to it with a lot of pro and con discussion. And going forward, when you have those kind of discussions and arguments in your family, when you move forward, things do work out. So I'm pleased to support where we're at now, and it's now we're going forward and hopefully saving lives and starting on a whole new trend. Thank you for coming out to support this discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Gazzola. Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to all the delegations that came before Council, sharing your personal trials or those of your family members and the struggles and some successes as well. This experience was eye-opening for me and becoming better realize how prevalent the issue is in the community, as well as the urgency of the need as well. I want to be transparent and upfront. Initially, I was concerned with the site for 150 Duke. thinking that I would have preferred if the region had come to the city in consultation and addressing this as a preferred site or outlining additional options. That wasn't the opportunity that was given. This was kind of dropped on our lap as a preferred choice with consultation that happened outside with the community alone. But I think from what we've heard today, coming to the table, I was still wanting to weigh on the side of finding the right balance to address the needs of the community while at the same time recognizing certain challenges that do exist with the site at 150, with the other institutions and other services that are provided along 150. But what I've moved away from that position because I think what's really resonated in my mind is timing is of the importance. And sometimes you can't always find that perfect balance. Sometimes just action has to be taken. And so hearing from you has changed my mind, and I support the direction that this council will be taking in supporting 150 Duke Street.
Okay, any other comments? I'll just make mine briefly, and then I'll come to you, Councillor Marsh, for the final word. I want to thank everyone for coming in this evening and sharing your thoughts with us, particularly those with lived experience, whether it's yourself as someone who is part of the user community or someone who has family members who've been part of that lived experience. Those stories have been incredibly compelling, both here and when we've heard them at the region. I also want to say that I want to thank everyone who over the last week has endeavored to share their thoughts with me and with Councillor Marsh and with all of our council. I have to say that as mayor of the city, I've been incredibly proud as to how many people from all corners of the city, including through the downtown core, have come out positively in support of the recommendation and positively of moving forward to address this issue as quickly as possible. And that was one of the clear messages that, quite frankly, was extremely compelling for me. Particularly when, and I see her right in front of me, when Councillor Marsh and I met with Jenny Kirby, and I had also met with Reverend Preston Parsons, and the whole notion of literal concern, fear that without a clear message, we run the risk of not getting funding from the province. And that for me was extremely compelling. So I want to thank all of you. Thank you for being part of the process, for believing in the process. And I believe now we'll be able to, even though the vote hasn't taken, judging by the comments, we'll be able to move forward together after Regional Council deals with this on Wednesday evening. I too want to thank both our staff for all of their support through the process, as well as regional staff who have played an integral role in this from the beginning. I know that working together, some of the concerns that have been raised tonight, we'll be able to overcome them together. And so with that, I will turn it over to you, Councillor Marsh. We can?
Definitely. We've heard a lot tonight that I'm so inspired to see even people who came in here tonight not sure where they stood. They're leaving here tonight knowing that this is the site that we need to land on. This is the direction we need to go, and that's thanks to all of you who were brave enough to come and speak tonight. We've heard a lot of thanks. Thank you, Councillor Marsh and Mayor Brvanovic, but you know what? We don't deserve those accolades. It's the people who are in the trenches in this war that's going on right in front of our face. We have almost 4,000 people, probably by today, 4,000 people who have died in Canada due to this opioid crisis just in the last couple of years alone. And I don't know the last public health crisis, which this hasn't even officially been named yet in Canada. I don't know the last time that many people died of a health crisis. I was trying to talk about it with a friend last night, and it might have been the plague. Honestly, somebody educate me, 'cause I don't know. The Spanish flu, thank you. But we've had much fewer people get ill and called other things a health crisis. So I think that that's something we need to work on in advocating, which you are also adept at, in making this recognized by our federal government. I'm incredibly thankful specifically to the people who are working day to day. So Joe and Stephanie Mancini, who've been doing this for decades, Julie and Grace, who have led this process at the region, and people who are supporters, who've spoken today. So that's Chardin, Preston, Violet, Tyson, Simone, Abby, Pete, who's not here today, but who I've had interactions with as well, and Julian. People who have been dealing with this in their own personal families. Andre, Simone, Candace, and Melanie, we hear you. And in particular, I want to see, this is supposed to be an umbrella. It's not supposed to rain tears. I want to thank the people with lived experience who are so damn brave. And so that's